Well, first, thank you for attending this session. And as it has been said, you're going to learn how to quick start a game engine game on AWS. So my name is Frédéric Nowak. I'm leading a team of solution architects in EMEA, and I have the honor and pleasure to co-present this session with Ihsen, Ouerghi, and Nassim, Benmalek. But first, before we start, who knows who those guys are? Please raise your hand. Yeah, you don't. So make me confident, because that means that I am in front of game developers who are never reading the doc, because they are coming from the Godot doc in some ways. It's an image that has been generated with a GenAI tool on AWS with Stable Diffusion tree models, and I took a screenshot from the first 3D games. That are the characters in a retro fashion way. So you can do that on AWS. So who are we? What is AWS for Games? So we are not game developers, so you're not going to see shiny graphics and gameplays today. But our mission, well, we are seeing a lot of game developers every day, and our mission is to help them to use AWS services to build great games for their players. And also, we are focusing on very different type of companies, very big studios like Epic Games, Riot. But we are also taking care of the smallest and the indie companies, and that's why we are here today and to present you that solution. Quick recap on the AWS mindset, okay? And it's coming from the retail side of the business, meaning that we want to offer the maximum choices for our customers so they can choose whatever they want and what they need. That's what we are focusing on. We are not here to push things. We are here to offer the best solution for them. So it can be native services with basic building blocks from AWS, or it can be very high-level managed solution like the W4 Cloud. And yeah, as soon as they are in the marketplace, obviously, but that's what we do. Quick recap also on how we see we are presenting our offering is more about following the game development cycles, starting from the build solutions around version controls, CI/CD, workstation, QA, all that stuff. On the run pillar, we are more focusing on operations and infrastructures with, for example, our Amazon Game Lift service, which offers out-of-the-box multiplayer gaming services. And on the grow pillar is more where we are focusing on the players. What we meant by that is the player acquisition, player engagement, and monetization in the end. Because if we build a game for a business, you have to live of your business at some point. So where AWS Amplify for Godot Engine fits? In a sense, it's covering the three pillars, okay, kind of. And the idea of the session today is to show you how it could be the one-stop stop to start building a game on AWS, and by covering many areas and needs you may have. Oops. Well, let's start. But what is AWS Amplify? Primarily, it was meant to build web and mobile applications, okay? And with covering many kind of AWS services. If you see AWS services as a big box of bricks you have to assemble to create something, sometimes it can be a bit hard. And AWS Amplify is more an opinionated way to use AWS, meaning that you have already built-in building blocks. You can use straightforward without doing complex customization on your side. So it's help you quick start your games. That's the main point of the service. It's also for global hosting, an admin UI where you can manage your users, you can manage your data, the object you're storing on the underlying S3 services, for example, a full stack CI/CD, and also a new developer experience where you have a sandbox for each developer, meaning that you are not, let's say, it's easier for you to collaborate. And of course, one of the good new features of Amplify is that you can extend the feature of the current existing feature by anything you want based on the bricks I mentioned earlier with the AWS Cloud Development Kit. The main use case were originally for the web, okay, with the most known framework, Next.js, Swift, Angular, all that stuff, but also for cross-platform apps such as Flutter and React Native. And the idea of the presentation today is to show you building blocks to be able to use Amplify from the Godot Engine. Let's dive a bit deeper on the features. First, we are offering the storage for your structured data, such as the object, the player profiles, game data, anything you think you want. So it's just, it's a developer experience driven, meaning that you just have to define your objects in a schema, and then Amplify is taking care of all the rest, and it's storing everything on the back end. It's offer authentication out of the box. Everything you built, your building is exposed as a GraphQL API. You can switch to a REST one if you want, but by default it's GraphQL. It's also offering storage where you can store your game builds or your game saves if you want. It has many more features. Once again, you can extend those foundation features with the CDK and build nearly anything you want. And, but for the demo that's going to happen later, we're going to just focus on those features. Yes, why are we pitching AWS Amplify now? Previously, Amplify, there has been a first version based on the console, the AWS console, so it was more a click experience, and we got a lot of feedback from the developers saying that it's a bit, there's too much back and forth between the console and the dev environment. So we decided to change things and to have a developer-first experience. It's allowed to develop faster, to have more control on the deployment process. Everything is driven by the code you push on your repo, okay? And once again, it's now open to any kind of extension with the infrastructure as code tool we have, the AWS CDK. So what are we releasing today? 4 things. The first thing is a Godot Engine template. That's a GitHub repo where you can file a default basic project to bootstrap a game, Godot Engine game on AWS. It's offer all the scaffolding, and in 2 clicks you can deploy it on AWS to have something running. The second feature is a custom build image. By default, Amplify is not offering any feature around Godot. Okay, so we have built a container image for all the 4 versions of the engine, the 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3, available on our container repo, where you can allowing you to build any kind of game you want with those versions. And also a Godot Engine plugin to interact with the API you have deployed with Amplify, so from the Godot Engine. And the fourth feature is, it's also a full sample when you can see full games mixed with a web you can deploy in 2 clicks on AWS to just see a more advanced example. So that's it, and we'll pass the mic to Nassim.
Hello. So first of all, I'm so glad to be here. That was very nice to meet you all today. So what is it all about? First, Frédéric explained it. The basic idea is that while we help our customers in the gaming area, we notice that having good multiplayer features is very nice, and it enhances the player's experience. But the thing is, as a game dev, you don't always want to bother with the infrastructure or understand how you can build the authentication system, all of that. You want to focus on making great games. So we had the idea of using AWS Amplify, which is an abstraction layer on top of AWS. OK. So how will it unfold for the demo? The first thing that we will show you is how, using Amplify and the provided resources, you can quickly build your Squash the Crypt game in the web version. So in less than 2 minutes and a few clicks, you can create an AWS Amplify application and then deploy your game. Second, so how you can implement authentication using the Godot plugin provided, and also using the AWS Amplify application. And the thing is, using authentication, you will be able to enhance your security and also create more data-driven features. Like you can get the user info, so you can create user data-driven features. Third, I mentioned data-driven feature. Creating a leaderboard is one of them. We'll show you how you can create the leaderboard. And last but not least, because we know that web is not the preferred platform for games, we'll show you how you can easily deploy your game for various platforms, such as macOS, Windows, and various other. So the first thing, it all starts on the wiki page. In here, yeah, you can play the video. Yeah, in here you'll be able to find a quick link that will bring you to the template repository. OK, great. So you click on the link, and you'll be able to create your own version of the template repository. You can customize it, like you can choose the name that you want, the description, and then create it. Now, you'll see that in the template repository, you can find multiple folders and files. I want you to focus on two main things. The Amplify folder, where your Amplify application is, and the game client, where you put your Godot project. So talking about AWS Amplify, the next thing will be to create the application. So again, on the wiki, you have a link toward the Amplify application. You can create one. And the first thing that we will do, you will link the AWS Amplify application to your GitHub repository, or GitLab, or Bitbucket. And that's great because you'll have a link between your AWS Amplify application and your GitHub repository. So when you push changes, it will automatically build and deploy your game. So now, the next thing is, because AWS Amplify is originally made for web developers, you need to import the custom build image. So this is a feature of AWS Amplify that we are leveraging here, and we created Godot custom build image, which is open source. And now, that's the end. You have your Godot game being built and deployed. You click on it. And now you'll have a playable version, web version of Squash the Creeps. OK, nice. Now the next thing, the next thing will be to implement authentication. So we need to make some changes to the code base, to the templates. So for that, we need to clone the repository. So great. Now, when you have a local copy of the repository, the next thing will be to make the changes. So for that, you open the repository in your favorite code editor. And again, focus on two folders, the Amplify folder and the game client. The first thing that we will do, we will update one of the modules brought by Amplify, which is the auth module. And in it, we will define our authentication behavior. So you'll see that's very easy to define authentication using AWS Amplify, like a few lines of code. Great. Now that we have defined the authentication, we need to import it in the backend. So you define the modules, and then you import them in the backend file. Great. So at this point, we have made the change required for our AWS Amplify application. Which is what is not showed here is that at this point, we've downloaded the Godot plugin we've created, and we imported it in the Godot project. So that's the add-ons folder that you might be able to see. And the next thing will be to configure the auto-load so you can leverage the plugin. So it's accessible from your Godot project. Great. Now you have the plugin accessible, and what we will do is that we will leverage the provided functions from this plugin. And to implement authentication, the first thing to do is to create a login form. So very basically, we create a scene with a login field, then a password field, and most importantly, it will be the login button. Great. Now, the next thing to do is to leverage the functions provided by the Godot plugin. And for that, we will create a link between the button pressed event and sign-in function. So when the login button is pressed, we will call the sign-in functions. Nice. So once it's done, the next thing to do is, because we want to show you that the authentication is working and that we are successfully able to gather or to fetch user information, we will add a field onto the game. So the username. So you can see that we can see the username of the currently logged in user. Yeah, and again, we are leveraging another function provided by the Godot plugin, which is getUserAttribute. Nice. So we have made the changes required in the AWS Amplify application. In the game client, the next thing to do will be to commit those changes and push them. And again, one of the great feature about Amplify, what I love personally, is that you push your changes and the game and the backend are automatically built. So great, you can see that your application is deployed, being deployed right now. So the Amplify application is creating the backend, so the authentication that we defined, and also your Godot Game. Next thing, we wanted to show you one great feature about AWS Amplify, which is the authentication. In the authentication, you can create your user directly from the AWS Amplify console. And that's great for example, closed beta, for example. But obviously, in the plugin, you'll find a function for the sign-up too. And you can create a sign-up form, like we did for the login form, and you can leverage the sign-up functions. So great, our game is deployed. And now you'll see that we have to authenticate. Great, and we are successfully able to retrieve the username. Now I hand it over to Ihsen.
Thank you. OK, so now we have authentication. So we have the base we need to create the next feature, that is the leaderboard. So we believe the leaderboard is very important because it allows you to increase the player engagement in the game. So they will play together, they will compare their ranks, skills, and basically will build a community around your game. So we can do that pretty easily with AWS Amplify because it provides out-of-the-box data persistence capabilities that don't require you to have very deep knowledge on backend and databases. So we are going to do that. And for that, we need to open the data folder. And on that folder, we are going to find a resource file, pretty similar to what we did with authentication, that we can open, and in which we are going to find an example that we can uncomment and change to have the leaderboard that we want. So we want a leaderboard in which we store the username and the score of that player. And we want only authenticated users to be able to access that, so we can also specify it. Once we have done that, we need to integrate that with the backend definition file. So we just add an import to that backend definition file, and we should be all set in terms of backend. So really, that's it. That's all you need to do for the leaderboard. You obviously need to integrate that with the game client. So from Godot, we are going to take the event when the player dies, and we are going to retrieve the username using a built-in function from the plugin. We are going to retrieve the score as well. And then we are going to leverage another function that allows you to push data to the backend that you just created. And that's it. Obviously, we need to have a scene in which we display that leaderboard. So we are going to create something very simple so we can showcase that. So we'll create a leaderboard scene, add the basic containers and layout that we need to display that. So simple title, separator, and a space in the bottom, so that you can display the results. Then we create a script, and in that script, we are again going to use a function that we provide from the plugin that allows you to fetch data from the backend that you created before, and we are going to take the 10 best results and display them on the screen. So we are going to loop and display that on the screen. And we are almost done. We just have two details. So obviously, when the player dies, we want to open the leaderboard page. So this is what we are doing right now. And from that leaderboard page, we want to be able to play again. So we are just going to add a simple message and listen from comic inputs so that we can play the game again. And that's it. All the code is now done for the simple leaderboard that we create. So just like we did before, we now have to commit the changes to our repository and push them, and that will trigger an automatic deployment in AWS Amplify. So there we go. The deployment is in progress, and once it's done, we should be able to play the game. So we open the game. And there we go. We need to authenticate, obviously. And let's see. We are dying, and then we display the leaderboard, and we can also play again, and hopefully do better this time. And yeah, it's better. Now we are the best. OK. So now we have deployed a secured and engaging game. But we know that web isn't the preferred platform for gamers, so we want to expand the user base, reach a wider audience. So for that, we are going to configure additional exports for desktop platforms, which are Mac and Windows. So Amplify is platform agnostic, so you should be able to build for many platforms without problems. We have a custom build image for that you can leverage. And let's do that. So the first thing that we want to do is to create a storage space in the cloud in which you will be able to store the build that you will generate. So for that, we create a new folder. We define a new type of resource that is called storage. And then we define the code. It's very simple. It's a few lines of code to add that. You define the name for the storage space that you want. And that's it. Obviously, you also need to import that to the main backend definition of Amplify. And that's it for Amplify, almost it. Then we need to configure the exports in Godot. So we need an export for macOS, and we need another one for Windows. We're also going to modify a bunch of settings, especially for Mac, so that everything works as intended. Once we are done, we can close Godot and open the Amplify project again, in which we will find a very important file. It is the amplify.yaml file. This is where we are going to define how we want to build the backend. This is what we see on the top. And the front end, this is what we see on the bottom. So we already have the build for web. As you can see, these are the 3 first lines of code under front end. And we create the build for Mac and Windows. Pretty simple. We add the command line for Godot export. And then we take the files that are generated, we take the build, and we push it to the storage that we created just before. We do the exact same for Windows. And this is it. We have all the code that we need for the builds for desktop. So again, like we did before, we need to commit the changes, and we need to push those changes to the Git repository that we have, and that will again trigger another deployment of the game, but this time with additional backend resources and the exports for Mac and Windows. So what's nice also about Amplify, and Nassim showed it before, is that we have an administration panel on the left in which we can have a look and modify some of the resources that we have, and we can see that we have a storage, and we can see the files that we exported, and there we will be able to download them and test the game in our computer, which is a MacBook. So there we go, we download the game, we unzip it, and we can open it. And here we are, we have the exact same game with the exact same user experience, but this time on macOS. Obviously, this is something that you may want to automate, because now we have the file stored in our storage space, and we can automate and do whatever we want with that. Okay? So that's it for what we wanted to show. So just a recap of what we showed. We showed you first how to deploy a very simple template to get started in a few clicks. Then we added authentication to that template very easily so that we can have a secure game and enable the development of more features. Then we added a leaderboard to increase the engagement of the game. And then we expanded the game to other platforms to have a wider user reach and wider audience. So thank you so much. Now I let Fred conclude the session.
Thank you, Ihsen. Thank you, Nassim, for all the work you did on that. Quickly, as a conclusion, you can dive deeper on what we show you today with the AWS Amplify resources. You can have a look. There are more features we have not shown today. Also, dive deeper on the Cloud Kit, Cloud Development Kit, very, very nice tool, next level infrastructure as code. And on the game side, visit our page. You can see all the solutions we're offering for gaming customers. And also, we have a solution to build more advanced custom game backend. So if you like and you want to build, go have a look too. As a conclusion, thank you for attending this session. You can access to the wiki with this QR code. We are here to get your feedbacks, to hear from you what you want us to build next. So feel free to go on GitHub, add feature requests on the projects. We will be happy to answer you. And you can reach out directly to us on GitHub by email, or you can find us on LinkedIn. Thanks a lot for your time and your attendance. Thanks.